All right. So before we dive right in, you'll see like complete redesign of every screen that we have on editor. This is the first phase of release where we focused on only editor. And we did this changes are not just any changes. These are carefully vetted out, taken feedback from numerous of our customers and incorporating into something that makes feasible for them to use in any sort of workflow. Complex, simple, how do we get you from a keyword to something that's usable and you can start adding value and finishing that blog post. So um, lots of things have changed on the platform in the front, in the back, and I'll explain everything as we go along. But starting with the title, well, starting with the core release notes is that majority of our models on outranking, we were using DaVinci and some other models, right? Like, so all of those are now untrained data. That means that we carefully vetted out thousands and thousands of blog posts, literally, and curated a solid list that we can use to train the models, right? And based on that, all the improvements that you see are going to be not just in terms of UX, but the data, the quality, how it uses entities, and everything has improved significantly. Okay, now let's get started here. Starting with the title. This is the same thing that we had before, but they're trained data now. So it's amazing data that we get now from AI. Ranking pages, we decided to bring this outside because this is a reference point for you to kind of figure out what the search intent is and how do you want to structure your title. So it didn't make sense to be in the advanced setting now. So it's out. You can quickly check what other people are writing, and you don't need 20 pages for that. You can quickly check what other people are writing, the keywords that you need to target, whether you have targeted them or not. And then we've added this. This little tiny box is it's abundance of knowledge here. But it's looking at the ranking pages and it's coming up with persona that might be the right fit to consume this type of content. And why do you need this persona, right? Like, so when you ask GPT-3 to write for content marketing tools, it's going to give you a very general idea of what content marketing tools is, but it's not going to talk about from a perspective of a business owner who actually has problems, right? Like there might be budget needs and there might be organizational needs, right? Like how does it work with team and things like that, that cannot be captured by any AI. So you need additional tools to capture this and influence the AI to write using those personas. Then the tone of writing. Tone is persuasive, the tense is present tense, the point of view is second person. Why the heck does it matter? It matters because how you talk about the product, whether you have first-hand expertise or not, or at least you want to write it like that, right? Like you're obviously going to add tons of value later on, which are your personal expertise. I hope that you do. But even then, right, like if the point of view is second person and we're talking, most of the posts are talking about this in second person, it doesn't make sense for you to talk about this in third or first person, right? Like it needs to depict certain level of expertise and it can come from the tone of voice that you write around. So we've added this feature and this is used when creating premium draft. Even without premium draft, right? Like people who are trying to conserve credits and things like that, or just different writing style, even without premium draft, we've made significant changes in the back end that makes this even more powerful. But I'll explain that as we go along. So now let's go ahead and start with our outline. Someone requested for the screen to be a little bigger, so there it is. Okay, so while the outlines are loading, a quick memo here again. All the outlines, well, some of you had faced maybe some repetitions before and things like that, right? Like that's because we're still collecting the data, right? Like now we have data and we've trained the models. So they perform very well when coming up with a comprehensive outline. Also, we moved this entire bar that you had for outline builder up on top over here. And something that I did not share in the title was that we've added this utility across most of the pages. And this is from the feedback we got from plenty of people that they had to switch back and forth between optimization to go back and change certain elements of their content, and that disrupted their flow, right? Like you want to move as quickly as possible and do as little of back and forth. You guys can still hear me, right? I okay, all right. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone can. All right. Okay, so back and forth and things like that, right? So we've added this utility over here. If you click on it, it'll show you the optimization of that point right there. So you don't have to go back and forth. You don't have to do that additional steps. And you can just move through the journey that we have defined over here as workflow. Okay, let's go to the draft. Same thing that you'll see over here is optimization, right? Now, this is great NLP terms and stuff like that. But like, I want them, I want a gadget when it comes to outlines, right? Like, when it comes to outlines, like, there's just no compromise. Because if my outlines are great, even if I'm not writing the content I'm giving to somebody, they will do an amazing job filling in the gaps. And that is why my outlines is super important. Now, when outlines are super important, you need practical ways and better ways to spot these opportunities and use them within your content, right? So, how do you do that? We've added this keyword utility over here, and this works great in bigger screens, right? Like in smaller screens, you can minimize this and then open this, right? And it will open up just fine over here. So these are all the entities and related keywords we'd hope that you target in most of your content. There's just so much data cleaning that we have done it out carefully, the words and things that did not need to be there. So this data is like extremely awesome with lesser redundancies and lesser figuring out because just the clutter is gone. Now, what you can do, you can click on any of these keywords and you can go through. So let's say actions, right? Like this is how it is mentioned, typing, whether it is mentioned or not, right? Like static. You can pinpoint where you are going and then go from there to adding the tools right next, right? So you're going in a systematic order from left to right. You know exactly how to pinpoint it, what your gaps are, you know which ones have been used and which ones haven't been used. For folks who like digging deeper into all the entities before creating content, you can also switch it to all and see all the entities. So you don't miss out pretty much anything, right? Like outline is super important. Again, I cannot stress enough. No matter how great or different or how many times Google rolls out their updates, this fundamental aspect will not change for anyone. And it shouldn't. Let's minimize this, right? So we can move along and I'll open up this thing over here so we can go a little faster. Okay, all right. So you see all the data improvements over here along with this small bar over here. We've added the ability to do this below and not above. So you don't have to constantly scroll up, scroll down, scroll up, scroll down. You can create H3 ideas and you can also create similar ideas. Now, similar is basically like you have one step and you want it to figure out the rest steps, right? So you can delete all of these things and regenerate it and it will start talking about the steps again, right? Like it'll build out additional steps. If you wanted to go beyond five, right, like you can start getting similar ideas and generate another five or six list so it can granularly talk about that particular topic. Okay, now let's click on first draft. Like, where did the research writing go? Like, there is no research writing over here, but again, yet it's a very powerful utility that many of you should be using. So what we've done is we've pushed the research writing here, and if you turn this on, you will see the research writing bar come up again, right? Like, and then you can go to the research writing. This will set up, and every time you come around, it will use research writing as part of your workflow. So it's totally up to you what your preferences are and how you want to use this. Okay. Also, the premium draft. Premium draft is obviously using the audience persona and things like that in order to write the draft. I'm going to create a draft without the premium draft so you can see the difference here and what sort of changes we have made. But let's go through this and I will remove research writing for right now. Again, you can obviously do the research writing even in the editor as part of this new workflow. So I'm not too worried. Like you can granularly build out any section that you feel are not correctly built out, and it's possible, right? Like we're working with AI. So, all right, I'm going to delete this FAQs so we can move a little faster in generating the first draft. And that's it. So it was simple, right? Like the title, outline, and now we are going straight to the first draft. These drafts are extremely, so we've improved significantly on the concept engine in the way that we were extracting data, also the way we were finding data. So like this is from 20 pages, right? So it's very easy to find the data that we have from those 20 pages. But if you'd had 50 pages as part of your background data, the models and the way the techniques that we use now in order to get the right density of information has significantly improved. It's much closer to what we want the content to pull out, the research to be pulled out. Okay, so it'll start talking about this tools, right? Like let's build out a few sections, and until then, I'll explain a few things that we have done on this page. Starting from the top bar, the clutter's gone, the sidebar's gone. It's a much cleaner view. Everything is accessible to where you need it to be. Some people have paranoia of whether my document was saved or not, right? So there is this 3 second, it shows when was the last data saved. You can click and save it again. If you click on this 3 seconds ago, it will show you the version history. So everything is in the top bar, super accessible. You can also copy a view URL if you wanted to send it to someone and use it as they can just get a link, right? Like you don't need to share internally and things like that. So download, document, and chat. Everything has been improved significantly in terms of the feature functionality and the bug fixes that many of you brought up. Okay, so while this is writing it, right, like it's doing an amazing job in writing it, and you can see basic plans and stuff like that is also pulling out, and let it write so I can show what's going to happen after that. All right. So a few more sections and then we'll refresh the page after saving. But let's look at this bar. So many of you work with very bigger screens, small screens, right? Like, and you want adjustable font size. So we've added this plus or minus, and you can see like it just magically becomes a little bigger, and it saves this preference on your computer. So the next time you come, you don't need to do minus plus. It will just recognize this and save it as your part of your setting. So now it's totally up to you how big of a font sizes you want or how small you want. Okay, let's save this document and refresh. Absolutely. So, and like, so understanding reputations come from building out modular content. If you were continuously writing, like if I was reading every bit of information that I was writing above to top down, then it's great because I know exactly what I wrote before and I don't need to repeat it. But when you're building out content in a modular format, you're researching it, you're writing it, you're researching it, you're writing it. There tends to be some sort of overlap, a little bit, right? And it is unavoidable. So it's unavoidable if you want quality data. If you want quality writing, but minus the data part or the factual part, then you can get less reputation because I can then read 4,000 words and I can still do an amazing job. But I cannot read 4,000 words and read 4,000 words of research and create prompts around writing it, right? Like it's practically impossible at the current moment. So there's just that striking balance that you have to live with right now. But there is significantly lesser repetitions because the content is written based on writing formulas. And I'll show when we get there. Okay, so it's writing, and you can see that we've added this address content gap as part of the workflow. This was a missing piece of puzzle. You needed to get back, go back up, and then fix the content, go down, right? Like it was just causing so much of trouble in moving along faster. So we've added this utility. We've also simplified the way we were showcasing this, right? Like, so this is where you are. Typical uses are this. We're not suggesting that you use 115 times or 6 times. We're suggesting that this is what typical use has been. We're not penalizing you for using more or less. Okay, same thing goes with related keywords. You can measure them individually, and you can also check if you've reached a score for your keywords or not. Okay. Obviously, we've also improved data collection. So you can see now that it's highlighting the tool where you might have partially used it or you might have used it. So these are all partial uses. This is how your competition has used it. This comes in super handy to know where you want to add what type of content. So you already know where you can add this based on some of the keyword that we have found, right? So it's easy for me to identify where I can go and add this, even if it was just partial match, right? That's perfect. All right. Now let's go ahead and close this out and go to the edit create section. All right. This is a beautiful new design of section builder. Much more efficient in what it was doing and easier to follow and understand. Just no, not so many buttons over here and things like that. All right. So let's open up the HubSpot. And when you open up the HubSpot, you see that we have used this is the background research that we pulled out from two particular URLs. So you can see the content, you can see the source URL, you can always cross tally, you can always improve the content based on what you found here. Great. What's even better is that when you're writing about what are the best content marketing tools and you're writing about HubSpot, what should be your writing pattern? Like, have you ever thought about this, or you just started writing about the content, right? When you're comparing HubSpot with Salesforce, what should be your writing pattern? You should be comparing them and contrasting them, right? You should be listing out the similarities between them and the differences between them. That's how you really show a versus, right? So people can make an informed decision. But this copywriting formula, it doesn't come very handy with most of us. Like, I'm not a writer by this thing, right? Like, I have to literally learn this. But for writers, this might come very naturally. They just know how to go about building out these blocks of writing content, and you can like look it up, right? Like, it's called development of writing patterns. What we did was we processed each of your outlines, and we figured out a way to assign or qualify an outline for a writing pattern. And based on that, we tend to build out the draft after it. So let's go ahead and look at this. When we're talking about what are the best content marketing tools, you've already decided that this is the best content marketing tools, and this is the list that I'm giving you. So there should be an argument, right? That why is HubSpot one of the best content marketing tools? So we build out the primary question for you, as well as the writing pattern, which is argumentation. You're arguing against with the fact that backs up your claim of why HubSpot is the great tool for you. Now, there are so many different types of writing patterns that you can adapt, and we have trained the models to go and pick this out automatically. So you don't have to really do anything at all. But imagine if you were adding a custom temp or custom H2 or H3 and you did not know how to build this out. It can figure this thing out on its own. And you can see there are so many examples of how this builds out. So you don't need to worry about this. And that's why it's minimized. But you would understand that it's building out an argumentation type of paragraph. So it's easier for, if you have the framework, it's easier for you to adjust more facts and details into it, but it's at least written in how you should be conveying this to the users. This is super important, right? Like, GPT models and chat GPT and all of those are not trained to do things like this on the fly, right? Like, it's conversation based, so it's just going to give you what you want, but it's not giving you what would be appealing to the users and how you'd convey them into a product or services or taking a next action on from your content. So this is the biggest improvement here. You can also see the concept screen, it's still there, and you can click on it and you can see the concepts that we build out, and you can build out additional concepts and write around it. It's all perfectly there. It's just structured a little differently and easier for you to use and go about building the small blocks of content. Okay. All right. And now let's look at the introduction conclusions. Nothing changed, nothing changed. AI writing, nothing changed. But now let's see what happens next. This changed. So I'm writing about best content marketing tools, and I don't have a sitemap yet, right? So it's TPS. And if you have set this up in your account correctly, it will not ask you. It will just go ahead and do it. But let's look at this. Like, so it build out links to, and it should also build out links from. And links to is going into the same silo. It's trying to figure out which are the closest, what is the closest silo, or what is the closest set of phrases that I can put this keyword against, and give you suggestions for internal links so that you don't have to go run around. It's perfect. It gave you almost 8 internal link suggestions. And you can see every one of these either has content marketing or tools or content marketing tools or things like that attached with it. Okay. Links from, same way, right? Like, so these are content get, like, see, don't literally, but content marketing tools, it's something that you want to rank for with this particular topic, right? Like, so content marketing tools, you see that best is not there. And you can internal link from some of these pages, whatever makes sense, right? Like, you can list from internal pages and go about building this blog. Great. Same thing, keep check on your score always, right? Like, so you will see this tag along wherever it is important for you to optimize, but it's not in your face. And images and alt tags. So again, right? Like, so we don't want to be those guys, right? Like, generating like crappy images, right? Like, and creative images doesn't float very well. But what we wanted to do is give you ideas on what kind of image you can actually use as part of your content. So this is still ideas, And you can take this prompt and go to your favorite image generator and generate an image, or you can take an idea out of it and literally brief your guide writers, or just kind of find what would be helpful for the users at this part of the journey. And same thing, you have optimization for images and alt tags up over here. Okay, let's go look at check on page SEO. Now, this is extremely cohesive with the design and the concepts that we have listed everywhere else now. So you will not get lost in whatever you're trying to do. So let's go, my screen is stuck. Okay, as soon as my screen gets unstuck. Okay, let me just refresh it. I think you guys can hear me. I think I lost my internet for a second there. Okay, got it. All right. Yeah, so my internet is a bit crappy. The weather is crappy. All right. So we go through this list in the same specific order that we were before. Nothing changed here, just minor design changes and making it very simplistic. And then once you're done with your on-page SEO, that's when you need to move to publish. Now, publish changed dramatically. Many of you have different use cases on how you publish, what CMSs you use, and how you move the content to different platforms. And we heard a lot about different ways people were publishing content. So now you have a way to zip the images that you added here. So you gave it to a writer, they can zip when you're sending it to the publisher, you can just send the published link, right? Like you can just click on published. So when you share the link, they'll see this and they can do their own work, right? Like they can download the images, markdown versions, everything as easy as possible over here, or you can just zip everything into one and export it to your publisher. So this is the super fast way of building out content with outranking now. Super simple process and very fast. What we have significantly improved the speed across which there were loading time have been improved by about 7 to 8 times. So you could see like it's 800 times faster speed loading on many of the utilities that you had to previously wait for 15 to 30 seconds. Okay. All right. Now let's quickly look at the brief. We'll switch to brief and just bear with me. My internet is really. All right, so I don't really have anything, so let's add a template and we'll call this outranking. And all right, I'll just leave it at this and we'll go next. So you'd see when we change the content brief, there's no publish, there is no optimize, right? Like you just need the brief that you can send it to the writers, and then either they can optimize it or when they give you the draft, you can optimize it, right? So we've adjusted that workflow and let's see once the brief loads. It'll just not pull out the sitemap. That's okay. Since I already started it, it's not way to stop it. All right. So easier navigation between so many briefing items, right? Like you can go to secondary keywords, funnel stages, whatever you want, right? Like it's super fast for you to go through this list and move on from here. So we've added that. We've also added tone of voice as part of this as well, tone of voice. And biggest enhancement that many of you might not understand is not just the download PDF doc, right? Like they work very well with this, but if you copy this URL and you can send this directly to your writers. Okay, let's load. Okay, all right. So this is your beautiful brief that your writer can take on from here and move on. Like, so I've just selected everything, so it's showing everything, and my internet is crappy, so you can see some images are showing broken. But besides that, right? Like, so it's easy for your writers to follow this through. And once they are done with writing the content, they can go to the editor and they can just paste the content themselves and score the content. So there's no back and forth. You don't need to jump through 1,000 hoops before you make this really happen. Okay, so this were all of the AI editor changes that we have done pretty much. And we made some minor changes. Well, we have made some changes to strategist. Now let's go to strategist. Okay, all right. Okay, so it's a very minor change here. So I'll go to strategist, and I don't have a domain set up on this account, so I'm gonna have to share a different screen. Let me just minimize this real quick and share my different screen here. Share and share again. Okay. All right. So let's look at this, right? Like, so I'm just gonna take. I did not have enough time to get this, but right, let's do this. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new silo so you can see what has changed over here. No, connect to Google Search Console was always there. It happens when you're creating a new domain. Okay, so let's look at this. When I create a new silo now, it's going to tell you exactly how many search credits it's going to consume. All right, so there's a couple of splits here, and I could go ahead and process these. So So once this rolls out, we'll know. But open this up and let's see. Okay, all right. For the new accounts, so the old accounts have already had pulled out all the data, but for the new accounts, what's going to happen is that if you let's say, all right, so we have this, we can see this. All right. Okay, so I deliberately added only one keyword and extremely long tail, so it loads up quite fast, and that's why it loaded up really fast. But it tells you exactly how many search credits it's going to consume. What we did was we split the consumption of credits into two parts, so you can accurately measure your consumption and you can plan around your credits by telling you exactly how many credits it will consume when you build out the silo. But after you get into the silo, you will see, well, there's no data, right? Like, I don't have any semantic terms in it. I know that this is an individual topic, there's no data to it, but I can enrich the data and get more semantic terms if I needed to, and that consumes another additional credit. So you can literally bypass like all the topics that you're not adding to the planner. You don't need to fetch new semantic terms on them, right? You only need to fetch them when you are planning your content planner. So you fetch it and it will go and grab those semantic terms around this and enrich the data, telling you that, hey, this are some of the keywords that you can target. And let me open this up. That still works pretty well. You can still upload it from href data, and it will group all the keywords accordingly, according to it. So now we can see, right, like this are all the keywords that you can potentially rank for by targeting this. Now it's up to you how your strategy is defined, but it enriches the data. If you have like 10,000 list of keywords, it would barely consume like half of your credits, right? So if, let's say, you have 10,000 list of keywords, it will group every keyword into the right bucket automatically. But it will not go and try to find new keywords for search semantics unless you click on fetch. Only then it will go and find new keywords that you can potentially target. So by splitting this, you have more control over exactly how many credits will be consumed per silo. And we have significant improvements for strategist scheduled for later January release. So we'll do more. We'll build more on the 10.0 with the strategist after everyone returns from the break. Okay, so that's the second. And the last one is in your settings under your teams, there is no longer an option for you to assign credits to anybody. You won't be able to assign credits if they're part of your team. They will have access to the same pool of credits that the admin has. It's no reason for them to be in the team if they are not doing this. So that's about it. That's the only those are the comprehensive list of changes that we have made across with this release. Yes. When we build out the silo, it's I believe 50 keywords for one search credit. But when you fetch when you enrich the data, it's one keyword. It's one cluster or search credit or whatever you call it. Hey, all right. I think that is where we are, and now we can take any questions. Natalie, are you still there? Yep.
Yeah, it takes a couple of seconds for the system to load me. Oh, okay, there are a bunch of questions, and I think like some of them were answered, and there's like probably like 20 scrolls in the chat. So there's also a separate Q&A section right there. So if you guys can use Q&A, that would be really helpful because I will be able to mark any of the questions that are answered. That's going to make things much easier and in case help us not lose your questions. Okay, first question is from Clement, and he knows the Q&A section. Is it possible to add concepts to writers as part of a brief?
Not yet. There, so like concepts, you mean the writing patterns and maybe the extracted details out of it. Well, that's the same as first draft, right? You could generate both and send it to them both. That's basically it, right? Like if you are creating concepts for your writers, that's essentially turned into a first draft now with with those writing patterns and things like that. So you just send that to the writer along with a brief. Either you can print out the brief or you can share the link the way I showed it. But it's possible because the content lives in the editor. You can generate the draft and still send the brief to the editor, and when they go to the editor, they'll see the concepts that you generated out of it. Okay.
Sounds good. Jody asks for newbies. Is there a tutorial video? So this time we are ahead of a game and we have a few things for you. So we do have a product documentation in a Notion document that is going to be shared with you in the email today with the recording of this session. And then we also have a few other things. We do have the videos. So all of those resources are going to be emailed to all of the everyone who is signed up for Outranking and whose email we have. All right. Michael asks, so if I came back with 200 clusters, it only takes 1 credit?
For fetching or enriching data, yes. Doesn't matter, we can pull out 500 and it will still just consume 1 credit. But when you're building silo, and if you're building a silo around 10,000 keywords, you can divide that by 50, and that's how many credits it will consume for building the silo. So it's broken out into two different parts, but it will tell you exactly what's going to happen before you do it. So you're not left in the limbo.
Bob asks, is the code clean when using the WordPress plugin or should I copy and paste?
It's up to you. So clean HTML will not like essentially when we pass this on to the WordPress plugin, it's clean. But if you would prefer copy and pasting the clean version, you have a way of doing this in Outranking. You can just click, copy the code, paste it, and you're done.
Are there any plans to improve the export function and take all the formatting into consideration?
What are there any plans to improve export function and taking all the formatting into consideration? I spend a lot of time reformatting everything after finishing an article. So this release partially solves that issue. You have HTML code now. So it's clean HTML, right? Like however you have designed it, it's going to use those same exact settings when you copy that clean HTML and you take it wherever you are. For in regards to the WordPress, yes, those developments and again, right, like we want to change the UI and make it more functional. So those are part of our roadmap and will improve significantly, but you still have a way around this. You can just one click copy the clean HTML. It should keep all the formatting that you have in a clean HTML version and take it back to you. Obviously, we don't allow colorings and things like that, like changing the background colors and things like that. So we don't not worry about that. But if you like table support's also coming up. But if you had images, right, you've structured H2s, H3s, bullet, unordered lists, and things like that, using clean copy of HTML should literally be duplicate of that. No matter what platform you work with, they'll all accept HTML.
Awesome. Paul asks about the writing capabilities, like creating a summary, creating new concepts.
Yeah. So you will see this is my account, and it's loaded with some additional capabilities for us to do some brainstorming. So I'll explain a little bit better of how this sections are built out. Let's map to it. All right, and we are going to go to AI writing. Okay. There's a few more questions while it's loading. Okay, all right. You can see my internet is like gone out to dogs today. Okay, so let's go to edit create section here. And we see design and features, right? Like so, let's pull up the writing plan. So we don't really have this writing plan right now. And let me delete some of the sections over here and show you what we do. Let's delete this and I'll delete a few options from here. Okay. Okay, so once it starts writing, I'll show how you can modify that. Or maybe this loaded up and then I can go to here. Okay, all right. So this probably is a better one. Yeah, I did not build this out section properly. One second, let me pull up from the account that I already had. There. Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to stop sharing my screen and then share again. Okay, and here it is. Is the screen l- okay, the screen keeps loading, so I don't know. I've already clicked it. Maybe it's air meet. Okay, hopefully you guys can see it. Okay, there it is. All right. Okay. Let me switch this to AI writing again, and I can show if the patterns have been built out over there so we can save some time. Okay, the pattern should have been here. All right, so let's look at this. All right, so the concepts and everything is still there. You just need to generate this from here. And it's pretty much the same way that was working before, but the key points are different now. It's being built out based on argumentation and your writing pattern. So we are our research and our key point extractions should be very specific to how you'd want to write the content. Otherwise, you just have a bunch of concepts, but they're not written strategically, so they don't tie in together. And that's why we have this writing pattern, which sort of automatically identifies and creates this. So same thing, you'd go back over here, generate key points if you needed to, and go from there. You'd see that although these key points are built out, will be larger than they were before because we're combining a few key points together to give you more concise direction on writing. So you can pretty much qualify this even as a first draft basis and start working from it instead of vetting out the data, deleting it, and things like that. But it works pretty much the same way. You can still select it, summarize it, you can add your own concept. All of that still works the same way it was working. It's just tied up in small boxes. Oh yeah, how can I forget this? Language changes. We have every language should on our platform work from the 10 languages that we support. We improved on every model that we were using for languages, and now we have trained specific data for it. So you should have a fewer problems. I'm not saying like the problem will go away, like because we're still adapting to English, right? But it should work seamlessly for any other languages that we support on the platform right now. That has been one of the major enhancements. It's why it took us over 2 months to vet out the data and come up with this better models that can write in any particular language. So yes, it should work pretty well. The tones, everything like briefing, briefs, AI writing, content plans, outlines, they should all function extremely well with any languages that you guys work with that are supported on the platform.
Um,
Hey.
does strategist data integrate with writing functionality?
Yes, to a great extent. When you create a document from a strategist feature, it tags along the keywords, the semantic keywords and stuff that you want to rank for, along with it, along with it into your editor. So when you're writing and optimizing, it's all around the semantic terms and things that you want to mention into your content, keeping into the consideration of that. And because our internal linking is also based on silo, if you have written the content already, we can pick out the information from the same silo and suggest anyway. So it's very well integrated, and we have plans for deeper integrations later on.
Hmm. Malcolm asks how to create a content plan from the outranking research.
Outranking research, I'm not sure what you mean. Research, if you mean in strategist, I don't have, again, I'll have to shift. But if you mean strategist, then strategist is to precisely help you build the content plan for the next 6 months, right? Like if that's what you're aiming for, then just go ahead and start with strategist, and that should lead into the content planner that you currently have. And happy to share one more time a different screen and show you. Okay, there we go. Hopefully it loads. There we go. Okay, starting not for notes. All right. So what you can do is, like, let's look at this, right? Like we've added 6 topics to the planner on this list. You can open this up and you can add everything that you find in a particular silo to your planner. And you can also change the primary keyword like we have here, and there's a dedicated video for that. Everything goes into your planner, which you then start either creating or optimizing. There we go. That's pretty much it here.
I don't have any more questions. Is there going to be a
Sounds
replay?
good.
Yes, Bergen, the replay is going to be available along with a couple of links that will send to you how to use the V9 um, and product documentation in a couple of videos.
Q&A here.
Eddie is asking about actions.
Is has been integrated with strategist. You still have access to actions because some of the features we have not combined yet. And as soon as we do that in the last week of January. Once you guys come back, we have an extensive release planned around strategist. That's when we'll take away actions. But many of the core capabilities of action have already been integrated into strategist, given a few enhancements that we have planned.
Laura asks, are we planning any more accelerators? What type of accelerators would you like? Anything in particular? We've ran a couple, actually three different for different audiences. Any particular audience, to drop it in the chat. And we are considering one for SaaS companies, software companies, and we had been running two, I think, already. So let us know. And by the way, I have recordings from all the previous accelerators put together as like one course. So for all of you who are interested, let me know. I'll share it with you. Okay, what about existing documents I created with the last version, but article in
They'll
Outbrain?
you can Yeah, but articles are not finished. Can I use the new features? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It might take a few seconds for the new workflow to load. If there are key pieces of puzzle missing in the middle, you'll just have to wait for it to generate. But yeah, absolutely, it should work with older documents, new documents, doesn't matter.
Is there accelerator for e-commerce? Not right now, but we do have it in the plans. Let me see, there were a couple more questions.
Webflow plugin is in the plan along with a few others, which we'll talk about next year. By the way, next year is not that far. Plagiarism check as well that comes along with it.
Eric asks, what's the difference between a silo and a pillar?
Pillar is the pillar page. It's one page that links to many other pages in the same silo. It's probably the most comprehensive page in a silo that can connect many other pages with it. So you rank for a very broad concept that leads into specific concepts, which are different pages. And this entire thing forms to be a silo.
With the data
For the
improvement?
I have one answer for that
Yep, go
plagiarism
ahead.
checker. Many of you already use Grammarly for plagiarism, and Grammarly plugin works seamlessly fine along with outranking for the time being. We do have plans of integrating other plagiarism checkers eventually.
With the data improvements to the AI editor, is there less of a need to use the research workflow?
I wouldn't say that. Data improvements are great, but like so I would the way I'm describing this is based on my persona. I'm a guy who would like more details and some concrete details in the content, right? So yes, we can pull in some amazing research from the 20 pages or the additional pages that you've added. But it's again two or three sources, right? Like if you were writing something like, comparing outranking with some other product, I'd go to the nitty gritty of it, right? Like I'd not miss a single concept or a single line that's related to a comparison post. I would choose research writing then. And if I was building out something more generic where the product mentions need to be in only a few places, then I could easily use this new feature that we have in the redesigned feature of edit create section. I can pretty much use that in the same possible way, right? So whatever fits your workflow. And that's why it's a setting and how you'd prefer it, right? Like if you're writing one post which is super quality every day and you just put lots of thoughts in it, there's no reason for you to skip research writing. If you do many blogs a day, which are more generic in nature, you can skip research writing altogether every time, pretty much, and then go and add more value later on. But it's really depending on your workflow. If you'd like the content to be more on statistics and evidence and information that you've included in the research, then choose research writing. Otherwise, that's just something else. Otherwise, use the same basic workflow.
It seems that the best place to start an article for keyword is strategist. Is that correct?
Yes, if you have a content planner, absolutely yes. If you are working through a plan, right? Like yes, start with the strategist. That way, you're not just focusing on everywhere, right? Like you're creating information, you're creating content around one particular silo before you move on to the next one. That's the best possible way, or the fastest possible way to start ranking.
And then a follow up from Clement regarding pillar versus silo. So, would you typically build a pillar page per silo and interlink accordingly?
Absolutely, yes. You could, absolutely. And sometimes it might not make even sense, right? But you still internal link them. So what happens is like let's take for an example. So I'm writing about font pontoon board for fly fishing, right? My pillar page might be just basic information about pontoon boards. No, it might not be. It might be the best pontoon boats available, and I can get into the types of fishing pontoon boats, right? And the best possible products out there. So I have like a huge list of it, but then each of those lists talks about an individual product, right? Like so I could talk about Godfrey fly fishing pontoon board could be one of my content pieces. So it one essential piece, which is pillar, has majority of the concepts that you talk in a silo, is how I represent this. But many times those pages are not even that extensively long. They are shorter. They could be even your product or a category page, right? Like it's all possible, and it depends on how you are seeing this through. But the main concept still remains the same, is one page with extensive amount of information about everything that you have written in the silo, but in a minimalistic way. So someone wanting to read something more specific about fly fishing and pontoon board can go to that particular page and read it. This helps all the pages rank well if they are interconnected in this particular sense. And I mean, there's so much research out there already and case studies out there that proves this. But yes, absolutely, you should have at least, well, you should have one pillar page that kind of combines all these concepts and brings things to light, right? Like there has to be one keyword. If there isn't, or at least you can't think of it, then there is a product page or a service page that definitely could be at the center of it all.
Chris says that feels like I need a graphic explaining how pillar and silo fit together. We've done an
Yes.
extensive session about that, and I have recordings. I will send this course that I was talking about. Going to send it to all of you in the next week or so, and so you can have and just choose and pick those that you like based on the on the stuff that you'll see there. All right, we're lack for words today. It seems like. I think we've answered all the questions. I don't have anything else. We have a bunch of emojis there, so it looks like people are excited to get into it and start playing with that, right?
Absolutely. A 2 minute rundown. We exactly have 2 minutes, so let's go through it. We've made significant enhancements to the data, which is the first thing first, because data is everything to the what we do. Then the second and most improvement is in the speed and UI capabilities of the platform. We have totally revisited that for AI Writer, taking the considerations from our customers. Made some minor adjustments to strategies so you have better control over how much credits you're spending and how you're spending them. And we have made some minor changes to the team functionality so that you can more freely share things with your team member with little friction as possible. That's a very quick rundown, and I really hope you guys have tons and tons of fun playing with this new release. It's much faster and streamlined than before. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the feedback. And if you guys think that this has really simplified the workflow and made your life easy, go give us a second review on some of the sites out there and say how easy it is now. Like, just don't keep complaining about how difficult it is to use outranking, right? So apart from all the gadgets, we've simplified the product so that you guys can do your thing much faster. So appreciate all the feedback that you guys have been giving so far.
Awesome. And Pankaj, let's answer this one last question about creating shorter posts because we've had a bunch of people ask us, like, I don't need 1,000 or 1,500 word post. What do I do?
And everything controls outline controls everything. Shorter outlines results into shorter post. So structure your outlines in a way that you don't get like 30, 40, 50, 60 outline. You just get maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 outlines, right? And then you can vet it out. But there's no way to control exact amount of 250 words, because then you are limiting the creativity of an AI and telling it to just give you really summaries instead of a full blown concept. So write maybe, I don't know, 500, 600 words and trim it down to 250. Like, all the vowels are coming at the end of it.
Awesome, guys. Thanks a lot. We are going to summarize this video and a few other things, and we'll share with you. And by the way, while you're still here, I'm going to share with you this Notion document. Let me see. A quick start guide. Here's a Notion document so that you don't need to wait another couple of hours for that email. Check it out. We've tried to summarize and add some of the screenshots. Once we go over that, we're gonna add probably a few things and make it a little bit more streamlined. This is the first take so that you're able to easier, use it today, tomorrow, in the next couple of days. And then additional videos. Check out our YouTube channel for any updates, for any videos that you need or like want. And then if you can't find anything, send a support message email to Sapan. We always have like a couple of shorter videos that we can share with you if you have any particular questions. Other than that, I think that is it.
That was good, guys. Have a wonderful
Oh,
day.
you know
And
what? And if you need a summary of V10, let me see. We made a blog post. I'm going to try and find it for you. But if you go to our blog page, you'll find the very latest post from today or yesterday with more information about the release and in the written version as well.
looking
I'm going to drop
forward
it
to
here.
you guys posting it in the group. What's your take on this release? So would really appreciate the feedback. Thank you all for coming.